Welcome back, viewers. I'm Surbhi Unyal. I teach philosophy at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. And today we are doing a special lecture under the symbolic expressions, and in this we are doing a new series on Introduction to Philosophy. This is specially for the beginners in philosophy who are trying to know what is philosophy and what all do we study in philosophy. In the previous lecture, we discussed what is the meaning of the term philosophy from both Western and Indian terminologies. So we saw that from the Western aspect, philosophy comes from the term philo and sophia, and this term was proposed by Pythagoras, who termed it as the love of wisdom. And he saw himself to be the lover of wisdom in contrast to the wise man. From the Indian concept, it is known as darshan, which means vision or that which enables vision or is the instrument of vision. With that, now we are going to move further to know what is the aim of philosophy and what are the various branches of philosophy and what are the important questions that we deal with in philosophy. So, philosophy is concerned with the search for wisdom and understanding. It helps us to answer some of the fundamental questions regarding the nature of reality and existence. It also helps us in giving meaning to our life, and it also tells us what is the role of human beings in this world. And we also discussed in the previous lecture that philosophy is not just a theoretical pursuit. In fact, it also has practical applications that we can apply in our everyday life. And from that aspect, we can say that philosophy can also be defined as doing philosophy, where we are able to critically analyze whatever goes on around us and also within us. So we are able to critically analyze that. And related to that aspect, we also talked about how philosophy is thinking about thinking. So when we are able to reflect onto ourselves that what is going on in our mind, what are we really thinking? So that means it is evaluating our own thinking, evaluating what's going on within us, and that is specifically the aim of philosophy, to critically analyze things that are going on around us, that are in the world, and also what's going on within us. One of the most fundamental questions that philosophy seeks to answer is, what is reality? Philosophers have debated this question for centuries, and there are many different answers. Some argue that reality is composed of physical matter, while others suggest that it is a mental construct or an illusion. These debates have led to many different philosophical schools of thought, each with its unique perspective on the nature of reality. Another central question that philosophy explores is the nature of knowledge. That what is knowledge and how do we acquire knowledge? So philosophers have proposed many different theories of knowledge over the years, from the idea that knowledge comes from experience to the notion that it is innate or a priori. So philosophers also seek to answer questions about what is right and wrong, good and bad, how we should live our lives. They explore questions such as the nature of justice, meaning of freedom, responsibility, agency, and so on. Now, keeping those questions in mind, let us now see that how does these different questions fall under the various branches of philosophy. So, philosophy is a vast field of study that explores many different topics and disciplines. Some of the main branches of philosophy include metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, logic, and aesthetics. Now let us look at them individually. What is metaphysics? This branch of philosophy deals with the fundamental nature of reality. It seeks to answer questions about the nature of existence, the relationship between mind and the body, the nature of time and space. This name, metaphysics, is derived from the Greek word meta, which means beyond or after, and physica, which means physics. Aristotle, one of the most well-known philosophers, acknowledged Thales as the first known metaphysician, as Aristotle calls metaphysics as the first philosophy, or sometimes just wisdom, and says it is the subject that deals with first causes and the first principles of things. So from that aspect, Aristotle believed that it is Thales who is to be considered as the first metaphysician, because it was with Thales that this idea of the first principle was proposed. Therefore, he considered Thales to be the first metaphysician. So, it asks questions like, what is reality? How does world exist? What is the origin or source of creation? Does the world exist outside the mind? How can the corporeal mind affect the physical body? If things exist, what is their objective nature? Is there a God, or many gods, or no God at all? So these are some of the central questions that we deal in metaphysics, and different schools give different theories on what they believe is the nature of reality, and to various other questions. Moving forward with epistemology. This branch of philosophy focuses on knowledge and belief. It seeks to answer questions about how we acquire knowledge, what counts as knowledge, and how can we be certain about what we know. So it's basically, you can say, is a branch of philosophy that deals with knowledge. It is concerned with questions such as, what is knowledge? How do we acquire knowledge? That means, what are the means through which we acquire knowledge? What are the limits of knowledge? What are the criteria for knowledge and belief? So, epistemology is concerned with understanding how we know things and how we can evaluate our beliefs. It is a fundamental branch of philosophy that helps us to understand the nature of knowledge and the limits of our understanding. Moving forward, the next branch of philosophy is ethics. This branch of philosophy deals with the question of morality and how we ought to behave. It seeks to answer questions about what is right and wrong, good and bad, and how we should make ethical decisions. Ethics is further divided into three main branches, which are normative ethics, applied ethics, and meta-ethics. Where normative ethics means that you are setting certain norms or principles on the basis of which you say that this action is right or wrong or good or bad. Applied ethics then tries to apply the principles and the rules that were created by the normative ethics, and they try to apply those rules in the everyday situations or various ethical situations that we encounter. And on the basis of that, on the basis of the rules created in the normative ethics, we then apply those principles in our ethical situations that we encounter and evaluate them to be right and wrong. Coming now to meta-ethics. Meta-ethics tries to deal with the fundamental questions of trying to analyze the terms like what is good. And if we are saying what is good and bad, what do we really mean by the term good? So it's going in fact into the more fundamental questions of what is good and so on. This again we will be, I think we will be able to take it up in our next lecture into greater details. It's being an introductory lecture, I am just giving you an overview. Moving to the next branch, which is logic. This branch of philosophy deals with principles of reasoning and argumentation. It seeks to answer questions about how can we reason effectively, how we can identify fallacies in arguments, and how we can construct valid arguments. So logic basically is the study of reasoning, you can say, where we try to provide various arguments, and logic tells us that how can we construct valid arguments where there is a valid relationship between the premises and the conclusion. That means what we are really trying to prove based on various reasons. So logic provides us that structure to enable us to construct valid arguments. The last branch of philosophy is aesthetics. This branch of philosophy deals with questions about beauty and art. It seeks to answer questions about what makes something beautiful, whether there are objective standards of beauty or there are certain subjective standards for beauty on the basis of which we say that something is beautiful. So how can we appreciate art? These are the questions that we deal in aesthetics, where we try to understand what does it mean to be beautiful, and when do we say that something is beautiful? What are those standards? Are those objective standards, which will be a universal standard on the basis of which we say that something is beautiful? Or we can say something is beautiful only on our subjective preferences. Fine. So these are some of the issues that we deal in aesthetics, where we are trying to know how do we create a work of art and how do we even appreciate the work of art and beauty. So it tells us both the responsibility of an artist and also the responsibility of the observer. Fine, and in that context it tries to tell us or raise various questions related to evaluating the work of art from the observer's point of view and also how the art should be created. So, if somebody creates something, what is it that will tell us that this is art in contrast to various other things that we make? All these questions are addressed in aesthetics. So, with this understanding of different branches of philosophy, I am sure that you have understood what are the fundamental questions that each of these branches are trying to understand and evaluate and answer, and how these branches are in a way distinct from each other. I won't say that they are exclusive of each other, because in most of the philosophies that you will read later on, you will see that there are certain overlaps between metaphysics and epistemology, how they are determined on each other. So, it's not that they are absolutely distinct, but they are distinct in their approach, in their methodology, and on the focus of how they are trying to raise and answer various questions. Now, I also tried to make certain distinctions here between philosophy and science, because those who are beginners in philosophy, how will they know that what is science and what is philosophy, whether they are different? If they are different, why are they different, or on what basis are they different? So, both science and philosophy seeks to understand the world and our place in it. So, you might be aware that even science tries to understand and unravel the world. It is also trying to understand the world, and it is also trying to understand our place in this world. And even philosophy is doing that. So, are they same? So, even though their aim in some sense that they are both trying to understand the world is the same, however, there are fundamental differences between these two disciplines. One of the main difference between philosophy and science is their method of inquiry. Science uses empirical method. That means to gather data and test hypotheses through experimentations and observations. The scientific method is based on the principles of observation and measurement and repeatability. And therefore, in that aspect, we also say that science is the first order inquiry. Okay, though there are various opposition to this view, whether science is first order and philosophy is second order, but I am not going into that detail. From the general understanding, philosophy is considered to be the first order inquiry, since it involves empirical methods of collecting the data, testing the hypothesis, doing experimentations, observations, and so on. In contrast, philosophy is a conceptual study. It relies on logical reasoning and argumentations to explore the abstract concepts and ideas. Science primarily focuses on the natural world and seeks to understand how it operates through the study of physical phenomena. Philosophy, on the other hand, deals with questions that go beyond natural world, such as the nature of reality, the meaning of life, and the nature of knowledge, and so on. So, in one sense, we can say that this distinction between science and philosophy can be seen in the sense of is-or dichotomy, where science mainly deals with is, that what is there, okay, and empirically observable. So, it means facts, and philosophy deals with ought. That means it is considered with values, that what ought to be. Another very important distinction I would like to make between philosophy and religion, because many of those who do not know what philosophy is confuse it with religion. So philosophy is a rational and critical inquiry into fundamental questions about reality, knowledge and morality and the meaning of life, among other things. While religion, on the other hand, is a system of beliefs and practices that often involves faith, devotion and worship of higher power or powers. So philosophy relies on reason, logic and evidence to arrive at its conclusions, while religion often relies on faith and revelation as the source of knowledge. So philosophers seek to understand the world through reason and argumentation, while religious adherents may rely on sacred texts or religious authorities to guide their beliefs and practices. But we can add philosophy to religion, and that is why we have a different field on philosophy of religion. But philosophy is not religion and shouldn't be used synonymously. So I hope this lecture was beneficial for you and you have gathered some information about what is philosophy and what are the various branches of philosophy. We are going to continue this series and take various concepts and different schools from both Western and Indian philosophy. So thank you. I would like to thank Manisha for this interpretation, and I thank you all for staying with us and knowing what is philosophy. So hope to see you in the next lecture. Thank you.